everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Elevate with C&M Coaching. My name's Maggie. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I have a special guest with us here. I have Justin Osburn. He is the founder and CEO of Smart Groups. They are dealer 20 Groups Reimagined, and then also of the automotive reinsurance concepts as well. Reinsurance is everyone's favorite topic. Justin, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, Maggie. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about your 20 groups. So you and I met back in, I want to say it was 2016, I believe. It was 2016 or 2017, somewhere in there. We
Right.
met for the first time. And you have started Smart Groups. So tell everybody what that is.
Yeah. So smart groups are 20 groups reimagined. And what that means is, of course, I used to work at NIADA and was their retail 20 group moderator and their certified master dealer instructor. And then left NIADA in late 2019 and moved back to Kansas City, where my family's from, and started a series of small businesses in the independent space. And one of them is Smart Groups.
Mhm.
And Smart Groups is just taking a fresh look at how 20 groups are managed and operated, what the schedule looks like. Our niche business is the large independent retail dealer.
Mhm.
So, we're pretty proud that we have the collection of the largest volume-based retail dealers in the country in our Smart Groups. For example, we have a group called Zeus, and all the groups are named by uh, Greek gods.
Oh,
So,
that's cool.
yeah. So Group Zeus, for example, is very unique in the country in that the average retail dealer they're all independents, but the average dealer in that group is selling 500 units a month.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so very large dealers with complex problems that can get together. And, we do very creative, innovative things. We try to use the financial composite as more of a reference text in the background,
Mhm.
as opposed to spending hours and hours of time going through line by line. I mean, no one's got to tell a dealer when they walk in, on page 3, you're number 6 on row 4. Um, these dealers are sophisticated, and the first thing, all of them are, and when they go to a 20 group, the first thing they do is open up the composite and see where they line out, compared to everybody
Mhm.
else. And so we've eliminated all that, and that's allowed us to buy back 3-4 hours of the meeting that they've invested to be there. So we spend a lot of time in the smart group looking at best practices and doing interaction. We're planning right now some big things. We're planning an event at the Disney Leadership Institute where we'll basically rent out an entire class, which is 50 seats of the Disney Leadership Institute at Walt Disney World in
Nice.
Orlando, and we're going to turn that into an involved 20 group. So they'll get to go through that experience. They'll get to go through and see how Disney manages their culture of 100,000 employees, how it pertains to their business, and they'll get to come together at the end of that experience and recap for half a day on what their takeaways were, and mingle with each other the entire event. So trying to
Mhm.
just find ways to keep people engaged to where it's not the same old humdrum from 1960, where we're trying to bring it into 2023.
I hear that because that's actually how I started my own company. I was sick of these, scripts from 1985. Oh, I just saw my manager walk by. Let me place you on a quick hold and ask him if that vehicle is still available. And I'm like, really? Okay, first off, your manager just happened to walk by this very minute with nothing else to do. You're gonna stop and grab that. It's just that's how C&M coaching came to be as well, is because I didn't want to live in the 80s anymore, as great as they were. It's time to kind of move on and do other things. And so, obviously, because phone calls are my whole world, let's talk about phone calls for a little bit, because in a retail setting, you're going to have a variety of different types of customers, of course, that are looking at cars. I mean, we do kind of really everywhere, but really retail is kind of unique in that aspect of things. And so, what do you guys do as far as like training goes for, helping them kind of grasp their phone calls or listen to their phone calls or what they should really look for?
Well, I was super excited to be on your show. And one of the reasons why is I wrote an article years ago called Supersize Me. And
Hmm.
it was about the movie, the documentary Supersize Me. and really wrote that article after I'd heard you speak in Vermont, when we met at a 20 group that we were both
Hmm.
at. And I had listened to you. I had learned a little bit about your coaching, and you and I talked a little bit. Well, have you ever seen the documentary
Yes, a
Besides Me?
long time ago, but yes.
So I've got to tell you this. So you'll love this. So, and it's all about phone sales in 20 groups. And so or phone training. So I was watching Supersize Me, and if you don't know the story, it's about this guy who did a documentary for 30 days to eat McDonald's. He had like four doctors and he had some rules. And he was going to see what it did to his body. And some of the rules were he was only going to eat McDonald's, nothing else. He was going to eat everything on the menu at least one time. He was going to walk an average of 5,000 steps per day, because at the time, this is 20 years ago, that was
Hmm.
the amount that the average American moved. And here was what really got me. Um, he was going to try everything once, and he was on the menu, and he was going to. The fifth rule was, if they offered to supersize, he was going to say yes. And when I heard that, I was like, holy smokes,
Yeah.
here we have a real world case scenario where a customer says, I'm going to film and document going to a business. And if they will just ask me to upsell, I'm going to say yes.
Hmm.
And so I thought, gee, I wonder how many, and we had just left Vermont, and I was like, gee, I wonder how many 20 group members will ask their sales calls for appointments. And then I was wondering what the difference was. So I was watching this documentary, and I won't, if you haven't watched it, it's been
Oh,
out
it's
too.
still available.
It is still available, but it's
Yep.
been out so long. I'm not going to worry about spoiler alerts. But so he didn't finish because it was so difficult on his body. But if you take the supersize me idea, and at the time, McDonald's didn't have supersize for breakfast. So the only opportunities was lunch and dinner, where the person working at McDonald's could ask if he wanted to supersize. So out of 30 days, that's two opportunities per day. So that's roughly 60 opportunities for the McDonald's staff to just ask him if he would supersize. And remember, if they ask, he will say yes.
Hmm.
That was so interesting. So, do you know how many times out of 60 McDonald's asked him to supersize?
Well, if I think about automotive and how many times we ask for an appointment, I'm gonna guess it's probably super, super low, like five.
Yeah, it was nine.
Yeah.
Very good. So nine divided by 60, and it wasn't
Oh,
quite 60. It was about 15% of the time.
yeah. Yeah.
So, but how interesting is that? I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah.
They were trying to drive to make an extra at the time, I don't know, dollar or 99 cents.
Whatever. I think it was 99 cents back then. Yeah.
But across the world of McDonald's, I mean, if they could have driven that ask from 15% to 25%, I mean, it's
Hmm.
millions of dollars of McDonald's. So then I said, okay, well, I'm going to secret shop everybody in my 20 group and before a meeting, and I'm not going to tell them. And we'll get to the meeting and we'll put something fake on the agenda, which I know you're used to because you've been
I
to a
know
ton.
those are my favorite. Yeah, I
Right.
love doing 20 groups. They're the best because you walk in and they're just like, "Oh, she's here."
Oh, Maggie's here. Oh,
Yuck.
we're not really going to do an inventory
Yeah.
roundtable. So so I did a I built the script, and I actually recorded these calls. I did them myself because I was really curious how this correlated to this McDonald's story. And out of 20, I think this group had 17 dealers, and they were all independent retail dealers. And out of 17 dealers, can you guess how many asked for an appointment?
Oh, again, it's probably super low, maybe two.
Zero.
Well, you know what? You kind of bring up something that I wrote down that I wanted to talk to you about, which was actually chat. I recently just did an article for your site about chat because so many dealers have live chat on their websites. So we decided to do an experiment here. And that experiment was we're going to start submitting leads on live chat to see what happens. Do you
Wow.
know how many of these live chats don't even work? They're just a button and you click on it and nothing happens. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't ask you for information. There's no one manning the chat. We had several chats where it would say one moment someone will be with you shortly, and then after 15 minutes it would time out and tell you that no one was available and just kick you out. But when we do these mystery shops, even for 20 groups, even for really big, fancy schmancy 20 groups that have, call drip and all the fancy things, we don't see phone calls. Um, and the statistic, it was insane. We had almost 1,000 shops, and we took the statistics from them, and it was like 70 some percent never called at all. So like there's a huge problem here with just calling your lead in the first place. So it's not just like what we're going to say when we get on the phone, but let's just pick up the phone and actually call the lead first. And we
Right.
found that with chat that so many dealers don't even know it's there. And if they do, they're not managing it properly and no one's answering the chats.
Right.
So I think we have a huge problem here as far as internet leads are concerned, and just picking up the phone and calling those leads and follow up and things like that.
Well, and I notice a big difference, we somehow over the last 3 years of building these businesses, our niche, our customer client has turned into, mega independent retail dealers. So we work with some of the largest retail independent dealers in the country. But I've got great friends from, being in this industry for so long that are smaller independents. And what I found
Mhm.
is, when you're a smaller independent and you're wearing 16 hats and you're jumping from QuickBooks to running cars down the road to trying to figure out how to cover because Betsy's off on Saturday, and you just got so many hats to wear. It's really difficult for that dealer, maybe selling 5, 10, 15, 20 vehicles a month, maybe 30 vehicles a month on the retail side, to one to think that you can afford something that seems sophisticated like a chat program,
Mhm.
or number two, have the time to do demos and educate yourself, or get away from the store and hang a shingle that says, be back on Saturday. The larger independents seem to be, uh, more on a level of what I would say the franchises are, where they've got the
Mhm.
time and the experience and the 20 group background to be familiar with these types of programs and have a BDC that's legitimately working, phone calls and leads and chats. But and I don't know what you found, but I mean, my heart goes out to them because there's so many, like maybe 70%, if that's not a real number, that's a adjusted number, but 75% of the independents across the country that are retail that just don't feel like they're big enough, don't have the time to get educated, or don't have
Mhm.
the time to deploy to make sure that chat button is there, or that it works, or that if how to connect it to Messenger if it's a Messenger type chat,
Uh-huh.
how to answer it if somebody actually rings the bell. So I mean, it's challenging to wear all
Mhm.
those hats and to figure all that out. And that's why they need people like you, Maggie, to say, hey, this is what you got to do. Let's make this easy.
Well, I think sometimes too they kind of set it and forget it. I've seen stores send emails, even franchises. We used to do some franchise mystery shops for a very large, franchise, and you'd click on some of the links in the emails and they wouldn't go anywhere. They were
Hmm.
old links because they set up their websites a long time ago, or they have these, automated emails that go out and then they change CRMs, but they forget to stop the automated emails. So you get like three emails that say the same thing. I've even seen them go out with like an owner's cell phone number in them before, which is something you do not want when you own a giant Chevrolet or Toyota store, people having your cell phone number. We've seen that, happen as well. But I think one of the biggest challenges is just making sure that you have a good manager in place, and you don't need 1,000 managers, but if you're going to have a BDC or a call center, you should absolutely have a good manager in there that makes sure that people are following up on their leads. I just saw in one of the Facebook groups for dealers this morning that someone had asked about follow-ups. How do you follow up? How do you get your team to just follow up? And we do a standard 3-day monitor on internet leads. So we submit the lead for a mystery shop and then we leave it open for 3 days to see if there is follow up. And there almost never is. So I
Hmm.
also think that's another kind of issue sort of facing everyone as well, because most people are buying cars within 72 hours.
Hmm.
So any time that goes by after those first 3 days, you kind of missed your mark, right?
Well, I kind of want to circle back. I guess so much to talk to you about, but circle back about what you're saying about the phones and not responding
Mm-hmm.
to even the phone call leads outside of chat. And something I'm curious to what your thoughts are and in what you're seeing, because I know this is your space. But I say this all the time, especially when I'm speaking at events, is the phone is so red hot right now. I mean, when the phone rings,
Hmm.
it's like gold. And here's why. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, when the phone rang, people were asking very logistical questions. Where are you located at? What's your hours of
Right.
operations? I was looking at the newspaper here and I saw that there's these three cars. Are they still available? And now the phone calls sound more like, I was looking at your website and I was looking at this particular car. What's your bottom what's your bottom price? Or does it come with a
Hmm.
warranty or is it still available? But what is interesting about that is this is a very different phone call, and the fact that customers have really tweaked the sales process and even the marketing process, and what they're doing when they're calling in on a particular car that they've seen on the quote on your website or on Car Gurus or a third party marketing channel is they've certainly went from dealership to dealership to dealership to dealership like they used to. They're just using their phone to do that. And of all the cars, of all the units, of all the vehicles in the United States, they've decided to do a call to action and actually click to call or dial the phone number and
Hmm.
call your dealership on a car they found that you own on your lot. And I feel like that is really abbreviated the traditional sales process. I mean, it's lopped off the first 30% of the traditional road to the sale, where you do a meet and greet, establish common ground, and you go through these steps to try to, do the 90-minute wander around the lot. If you remember the Joe Verdi days, all that's gone. And it's been replaced with the phone ringing and say, hey, I was on your website and I was looking at this particular car. Well, they've already spent hours, and you know better than me, but 6, 7 hours researching cars, and they've decided to take and people don't want a phone call anyway today. You probably feel
Right.
that way too. I mean, they'd rather text or chat, and if they could figure out how to text or chat you, they probably wouldn't even call you. But so they're calling you above all that on your particular vehicle, and then we don't really focus on getting any improvement on the phones. Like I feel like
Hmm.
the phone is so much hotter than it was 10 or 15 years ago, where the phone rings, it's gonna sound like, hey, Maggie, I was on your website. I was looking at this 2012 Ford Mustang. Is it still available? They skipped all the cars on the planet to call you about your Mustang. That's a pretty hot lead, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some of the statistics, I was just looking at them recently, and I know that they're saying now that it's like an average of 4.2 websites that a customer visits, and they do some like 60 plus hours of research.
Crazy.
So, I think that it's really interesting when you kind of take a look at that. They also say that you're more likely to convert. I want to say it was 30% faster if they pick up the phone and call you versus an internet lead. So you're
Huh.
more likely to convert them to a sale 30% quicker than you will with internet leads. And for some reason, those people that pick up the phone and call, they are the hotter lead. But what's interesting to me is when I look at my reports in my dashboard, because we track the appointment set ratio for each store, it's very interesting to me that the outbound call has a higher appointment set ratio for most stores than their inbound calls because they have a customer, we have a tendency as salespeople to ask less on an inbound call. And I don't get that, because a lead is a lead, whether they called you or whether you're calling them. But it does seem like the, way that we psychologically process inbound phone calls is a lot different versus outbound. And I see them asking for the appointment more on outbound calls.
Huh. Well, do you know, or do you have any, or maybe you would have to look them up, but do you know, I know what dealers talk about in 20 groups, for example, they want to know, okay, well, how many of our inbound calls they ask questions like this, like they're all
Convert to appointments.
convert to appointments.
Yeah.
And if you have a BDC, how many calls should a BDR make?
Oh, yes. I
And
hear that one all the time. How many calls should they be making? I usually say um I care more about quality than quantity. So that kind of depends on a couple of different things. But I mean, it kind of depends on what they're doing. I like to think of it as contact. So any form of touching the lead, whether that's emailing, texting, or calling, you're looking for somewhere between 50 to 100 targets a day. Like that's really what we want to do for an experienced rep.
Mm.
But the interesting thing is that they just did a study on this, and they actually say that people still prefer phone to text. So
Huh.
I am a big fan of using every method of communication you have. If you call them first, which I always recommend because you have like about 15 minutes before they stop thinking about you completely, call. If they don't answer, send them a text. If they don't answer the text, send them an email. You don't want to be overbearing. You're not going to call them 4 times a day. You're only going to leave one message a day. But that's your best bet, is to use all three methods of communication, and 15 minutes is kind of the target. As far as appointment set ratios go, most stores are pretty poor. They're usually in the 30s or 40s. We shoot for 80 or higher. Even 70 is tolerable, but most of the time when a store will start with us, we'll see them in the 20s, 30s, sometimes even in the teens. Because it's really just about asking, Justin. They don't ask. And that is a big problem. I think the statistic was less than 5% of salespeople actually ask for an appointment.
Oh, I've seen it a million times, and in fact, I've even done podcasts where we just picked up the phone and started calling dealerships
Hmm.
just to try to demonstrate how. And it's not. It's easy to say. It's easy to be an arm. What do they say? An armchair quarterback.
Yeah.
But dealers are just so shocked when you say, "Hey, this is your store," and they can't believe that Johnny, who is awesome, answers the phone. Sales. Oh, that one
Yeah.
just sold. And then you give them, I don't know, an awkward 5 seconds of pause, hoping that they'll say, well, would you be interested in another vehicle? We have one similar,
Yeah. Plan B.
zero, zero.
Yeah.
Yeah, we sold that minivan last week. It was a really nice ride. Yeah, we don't have it anymore.
Uh-huh. I actually have a phone call that I played at a 20 group, and this is how it went. Hi, I'm looking at that 2016 Honda Civic you have outside. Oh, we don't have that one anymore. Okay, thank you so much. Sure, no problem. End of call. And I said to the owner in the room, was that the only car you had on your lot that day? Because come
Right.
on now, right? Just take the opportunity to open up that funnel and ask about alternate vehicles. Back in like 2000, and I want to say like 14, 15, the statistic was 86% of customers purchase something other than what they initially inquire on. And I myself have been that person. You go to the lot thinking you're going to look at one car and you leave in something else. But back to the internet lead aspect of things, 78% of customers buy from the company that responds to them first.
Really?
So think about how important that is. And
Yeah,
that's from a survey done by Lead Connect. It says 78% of customers buy from the company that respond to their inquiry first.
that's incredible.
And after 5 minutes, the odds of connecting and qualifying with the lead drop 80%. So, like, after that 5 minutes, that's why I always say that first 15 minutes is so important. And people kind of think I'm crazy, but I've done a shop where we've submitted the lead and 3 days later they call you. Do you know how many cars I could have bought in 3 days?
Yeah. At least one.
Right? So
Right.
let's talk about the education aspect of your entire company. So you guys have like an online platform. Is it for dealer owners? Is it for managers? Is it for staff?
Yeah, so it's IDU, the Independent Dealer University.com. I'm sorry, it's IDUtuskers.com. And it's the Independent Dealer University, IDU for short.
Hmm.
And what the vision here is, and it's really exciting, is I have a vision to put together a training platform that trains every seat in the independent retail dealership. So everything from sales to sales management to F&I to the owner to service advisors, accounting, title clerks, controllers, receptionists, fixed
Hmm.
ops directors, from large to small, from startup to, mature, from baby dealer to mega dealer. We looked at every single chair in the dealership and we're working on building out curriculum so that when you hire and onboard somebody, you've got a tool that's affordable and that's a great resource that isn't just for the sales team, that
Hmm.
anybody can use to practice, to practice best practices, and so We've got a whole bunch of different talent on there, people that are really, really rock stars in their space, for the different departments. And there's tests. It's on the same platform, Lightspeed TV, the same platform that Grant Cardone uses, and Tony Robbins and Joe Verdi, Andy Elliott. It's the Cadillac platforms. You can test your team. You can have them watch certain videos. You can monitor their progress and their scores. But the independent dealer, like we talked about earlier, they in my experience, they have great intentions, but when they hire
Hmm.
somebody, one, they have a hard time getting out of their stores to see what other models or best practices are. It's not like you have a GM franchise where you have a rep that comes in and tells you every Saturday, or I'm sorry, every weekday or every Monday or every Tuesday, hey, here's what you need to do. Here's your targets. Here's how you set them. Here's some resources that the factory is going to provide you. The independent dealer, is really in the wild, wild west. And what we've done is we've done our best to collect best practices. So it's not like this is the way. It's more
Hmm.
like here are two or three best practices. You choose which way works best for your model, because we know that different independents operate differently. So yeah, it's Independent Dealer University. It's very exciting. We have over 500 different training video modules on there now. Um, One thing I'll say about IDU that's really exciting is we have the most comprehensive and the most robust F&I training on the planet already, that is already live on the platform, which means if you're an owner or you're an F&I manager and you're trying to increase your back end PVR, the training that we have in F&I is by the very best, 3K Corey Collins, and goes into depth about how to handle objections. I think there's like 40 different F&I objections that he goes over in detail, how to overcome, his menu presentation, the process of a TO, how to be an F&I manager. Really solid material on the F&I piece. And we've got sales and service on there with the rest coming
Hmm.
on soon. So that is the Independent Dealer University. And we're really excited about it. It's very inexpensive to subscribe to. We built it for the independent in mind, because I don't know about you, but there's a lot of great products and services, it seems like, out there for the franchise dealers.
Uh-huh.
But boy, there's a vacuum for people that are really focused on the
Yeah.
independent. So being able to create a product that's the same quality, but at the same time, at a price that's more affordable for the independent dealer, that's something that we
Hmm.
built in line with IDU.
Yeah, that is incredibly true. Even CRMs, a lot of
Mm,
times they're just not made for the independent dealer, and it's kind of frustrating, especially for us because we like to go in the CRMs and check around and look at the follow-up and stuff. And I know there's a couple of some of them out there that are really popular and a lot of dealers really like them, but it does feel like there's not a lot of stuff that caters to them. So that's great that you have not only a price point, but also like a program and a platform, because we always need education. I mean, you never stop learning anything. And I'm constantly reading and doing research on, psychology and voice inflection and the tone in your voice and how what you say, impacts the caller and how they feel. I mean, all of that is so important to know when you own a phone training company and we talk about the phone so much. But also too, we try to make sure that we're also affordable for people. And I think the mystery shops are so eye-opening and impactful that all too often they're just not looked at. I mean, even listening to your phone calls, recording your phone calls, there's still so many dealers that don't record their phone calls,
mhm.
you know? So, anything else that you want to chat about before we wrap up?
Um,
Any events that you're going to be at, or other events that you guys are hosting?
yeah, I'll be speaking at Alabama this year. I'll be speaking in Ohio at their convention this year. Speaking in the Carolinas at their convention this year.
Nice.
Working on some others as well, and love to see everybody out there. Really appreciate you having me on today, and it's always exciting and fun to talk about the phones.
Yeah. Yeah, I was hoping to get to the Carolinas one, but it's the same weekend as my birthday and
Oh,
coincidentally the same weekend as Lollapalooza, which I promised my kids I would take them to.
fun.
So I will be in Chicago instead of the Carolinas, which I'm disappointed because I really wanted to do that one. And I've heard that it's such a fun show. So
We're gonna have to have you to one of our 20 groups. You've never been to a smart group.
I have not. I would be honored. I
It'd
would
be a
love it.
blast.
It would be so much fun. Plus, you can't go wrong with mystery shops. You just
Uh,
can't. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know that you were super swamped and you worked extra hard to get this scheduled. So I really appreciate you coming on here. Now, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, Justin, what is the best way for them to do that?
well, they can reach out to me directly at Justin at ARC, that's ARC dealers with an S, arcdealers.com. They can go to our website, which is arcdealers.com or idutuskers.com. You can also visit our 20 group program at smart20groups.com. We'll also be at NIDA, so we'll have a booth there. So if anybody's at NIDA, we'd love to shake your hand and say, hey.
Oh, I'll see you there. I will be there as well. I don't know where you are. I'll have to look at the map and see if we can see each other from our booth spaces. We can wave.
All
Yeah.
right.
So, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. It was great to catch up and chat. And I guess I'll see you at NIADA in what, like 2 months, I guess. It's coming up quick.
Sounds good, Maggie. Thank
And
you.
thank you so much. Thank you so much to Justin for joining us here on this episode of Elevate with Stand-Up Coaching. A couple of quick announcements before we go. First, I want to invite you to attend this year's Compliance Unleashed conference. That is going to be in Texas, May 22nd through the 24th. It's at DFW North at the Embassy Suites. I am going to be speaking, and I'm really excited about this one, on the 23rd at 1:30. I'm going to be talking about collections calls. We're going to play a variety of collections calls. I particularly want to focus on compliance issues in collections calls, going over things we shouldn't have done in calls and, maybe some things that we shouldn't have said, but we did say. And I'm going to be speaking with Richard Hudson, and he's going to be there to provide his expert advice on those calls. And then you can also catch me at NIADA. Now, NIADA is going to be the 19th through the 22nd. We will also have a booth there as well, so you can come find us in the exhibit hall. But I'm going to be speaking on Tuesday, June 20th at 11:15 a.m. I have an awesome topic. We're going to be talking about the evolution of sales calls from amateur to expert. So to show you what it sounds like when someone has a very disorganized call, and then play that exact same person but much more organized and put together and trained. And so that's going to be great because I feel like a lot of times people don't realize that it's not that difficult to get your call structure together. You just need to do a little bit of practicing. And then I'm also going to be at TIADA. So that's going to be the Texas Independent Conference. That's going to be the 23rd through the 25th at the JW Marriott in San Antonio. I'm going to be speaking on Tuesday. And that's going to be at 11 a.m. So I will see you there. And I'm really looking forward to that. I mean, I know it's the last day of the session, and sometimes that's not always easy to get attendees, but I am going to be speaking on Tuesday at 11 a.m., so make sure that you're there. And we will also have a booth there as well. So you have plenty of opportunities to catch me if you want to learn more about what we do, if you want to meet in person, if you want to chat, if you're interested in talking about training, come find me. Next week, we're going to have a very special guest. We've got Bill Elizondo from NIADA. He's going to be joining me. He is a 20 group moderator. To be honest with you guys, it was supposed to be Ben Goodman and David Brotherton and Bill Elizondo, all three of them together, the Three Musketeers. But unfortunately, due to some scheduling conflicts, we are going to have the pleasure to speak one-on-one with Bill, which is going to be excellent. So make sure that you catch that episode next week. And I hope you all have a great day. And thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Elevate with C&M Coaching.